A little motto there from John Cale: fear is a man's best friend. Well, we're going to find out whether fear is indeed a man or a person's best friend, because we're going to be talking with a person who has named his off-Broadway show Fear Factor, the Canine Edition. He is an actor. You can find out more about him at thejohngrady.com, which is the perfect URL for him because he is the John Grady, and he's here on the phone with us, calling from New York in the neighborhood. Good morning. Happy, or I should say, it's 1 o'clock where you are. Happy Saturday to you, John Grady. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Good morning. Yeah, it's a lovely spring day in February here in New York.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that you guys have had amazing weather for the past week or so.
Yeah, it's out of control. Or let's all embrace the global warming. It's delicious.
Well, we haven't really had that here. It's been sunny, but pretty cold the last couple of weeks. We haven't been able to peak over 48 degrees in NoCo, and that's a little bit unusual for us even in February. So I'm envying you a bit.
Fantastic.
but you'll get. Thank you. I'm envying you. Fantastic. Thank you so much, John Grady. So you are currently in New York doing your one-person show called Fear Factor, the Canine Edition. Basic, simple question: what is the show about?
It's about my life and misadventures with my therapy dog for years in New York, and also it takes place a bit in Chicago, but primarily the stories take place in New York.
Can I ask, why do you have a therapy dog?
That just came, I sort of obsessively trained her while I was unemployed and looking for work, and I would spend my day just sort of training her, and found this outlet for her when I was living in Chicago. These women that ran this incredibly well-managed canine therapy organization in Chicago, they found me working with her one day, and they invited me to come and try her out. They put them through an examination, and then if they pass and they get certified, then they put you in a proper program that they think would be best for you and your dog, whether it's working with kids or working with rehabilitating with adults, or maybe just something as simple as like a little meet and greet, at maybe an elderly folks home, or something more engaged where we're setting up, like what we did is set up an agility course, and I teach the clients that I work with little hand signals and little call commands that I had taught Abby, and then they get a chance to work out with her. So they'll send her through the course and they follow her along, and it's not so much we're trying to cure them. we're not creating miracles. We're just trying to get them out of their heads for a few minutes for each week that we go there.
Oh, that's right. Now, when you said therapy dog, I thought maybe you had it because you were in some kind of therapy, or you're legally blind or something, but you're fine. I think that's a fantastic question that you pose. Mm-hmm.
Aren't we all maybe just in need of a little bit of therapy, and maybe that's why we do find this sort of companionship with other living beings, be they people or pets.
Okay. I think that's a little too much philosophy for me to handle on a Saturday morning.
Me too.
So your show is about having the therapy dog, or training him and bringing him to people
One portion of the show is about some of the work we did, but it's primarily about me misstepping through life, and Abby, my dog, acting as a co-pilot, and either guiding me or me helping to guide her, and just sort of trading off that position of leader and follower.
Well, what is an example of kind of an anecdote or a situation that you had, and talk about in the play?
Let's see what I can say. What can I tell you about the show?
Okay.
We do get involved. There's a moment where Abby has, in her life, she was about 7 years old at the time, and she had torn a ligament in her knee. And I opted not to put her through surgery because that often leads to doing surgery on the other knee, and I didn't really want to put her through that, so instead I started rehabilitating her on my own. Just that's the way I could come up with, massaging and just proper tracking of her knees, and light on the exercise, and then I was invited to a dog yoga class.
Okay.
That a friend of mine was teaching, and she asked if I would come because the the New York Times and Animal Planet wanted to come and observe the class and maybe do a story on her. And I thought, it's her. Of course, she's a good friend. She has this new studio. It's a new business for her. Why don't I come and support her? And she loves Abby, and she knows Abby's well behaved, so it'll all be, copacetic. Only when I get there, the Animal Planet is there to shoot a pilot about my friend Kari and her dog, and I just find myself in this position of like, oh, I think I've made a mistake in coming here. Just for me personally, I'm not comfortable with this being on camera, believe it or not, but in a sort of reality television show-ish format, and I just, oh God, no. But of course, who's having the time of her life and who's responding perfectly to it is Abby, and of course, the more that she's enjoying it, the more I'm getting into it now, and so then it becomes, and then until the very end, I realize, oh no, I can't continue to do this. Is wrong again. Just me miscalculating, misstepping.
So it didn't get on TV? Is there an episode that we can watch where you just denied and didn't do it?
I'm sorry, say it once again?
So this did not end up getting on Animal Planet, or did it? Or
Oh, no, it became a big show for one season. It was called Canine Karma, of all things.
Oh, so it did happen.
Oh, yeah, it really happened.
No, well, yeah, but I'm saying, but in other words, if people are watching the series, they can see you and Abby and
you would see us in the pilot version of it if you could ever unearth a copy of it.
Okay, all right. So at what point did you realize that your experiences with Abby and of course the other stuff in your life would be fodder for a stage show that you would come up and talk about and could shape it into some kind of
doing
show?
some storytelling with The Moth, which is a storytelling organization based here in New York, and then they've spread out and they have chapters all across the country now. And I had told a few of these stories in the past, depending on what the theme was of the night, and that after a while, and of course, being unemployed in Los Angeles, there's nothing like unemployment to get you to finish working on your own project. I started putting these stories together, and I thought there might be a through line to explore, something about, again, that cohesiveness, that shared experience with another living being. It could be your husband, your wife, your lover, or pet.
Right, exactly. Or lover and pet, which can be the same thing if you're a sick person.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, all right, and
which I think would be the trifecta. I think that's what that. Yes, I think that's the love trifecta. Yes.
But you've done other solo performances, right?
This is my first solo show.
Oh, okay. So, what other acting have you done?
I was a blue man for many years in New York City. That was my steady gig for a long time.
Now, stop right there. Stop, because that's I did see that in your bio, and I have to ask stuff like, you said for many years you were doing it. Now, were you kind of in because you're bald, or how did you get the blue man gig, as opposed to other people who might have wanted it?
That's a whole story too.
Yeah, tell me.
I was actually performing with Phantom of the Opera up in Toronto.
Uh-huh.
I was there for 2 years, and I was on my way. I always get to the show early every day to warm up, for the show, and I was walking up the alleyway behind the Pantages Theater. Next door to that was the Winter Garden, and there was just a handwritten sign posted on the door in the alleyway that said, Blue Man, and an arrow pointing upstairs, and I looked down my watch, and I was like, I got 15 minutes before I need to clock in. Let me see what this is about. Went upstairs and began a long audition process.
Oh, wow. Well, wait, how did you get back to your show? And you went and came back and went and came back?
Oh, I'm sorry. After that audition? Yeah, after that initial audition, I went and did the show, and then they contacted me and said, hey, how would you like to come on down to Boston for a week where they have their second show? At that time, Blue Man was just based in New York City and Boston, and they said, come on down to Boston. We're inviting some other guys to come down. We're going to do some workshopping. We're going to audition you. And at the end of that period, there were 5 of us, I believe, and they sent 3 packing. They hired 1 for the Boston show, and they said, me, why don't you come to New York? We want to work with you some more in New York City. So I went to New York for a couple weeks, worked with them there. Again, a very long sort of audition process, getting to know me and getting to know their community of performers out there and their artists, or rather here in New York. And then at the time, they weren't sure they were going to be opening up a new show. They didn't know just yet. They weren't quite looking for a new Blue Man yet, but they were enjoying meeting new people and auditioning them. And I said, great, that's fine. I'm moving to Los Angeles. I moved to L.A., was there for a year. At that time, I had then gotten Abby as a puppy. Mm-hmm. And then I kept in touch with them. And they said, hey, we're going to be opening up a new show in Chicago. How would you like to come out to New York and start doing the show here, and then we'll send you out to Chicago for a bit. And that's how that all began. So
what were the skill sets that you had to learn that you didn't necessarily know as an actor before coming into Blue Man?
You're right. Yeah, it does involve a lot of percussion and nonverbal communication, clowning, sort of basic tenets of clowning. And so I had to learn percussion for the show, but I mean, I was a ballet dancer for years up in Canada, and I think if you just have a certain sense of time and rhythm and a little bit of tenacity, I think you can. The show's not impossible to learn, but you do learn to become quite a precision drummer by the end of it.
Oh, wow. And also, I guess the fact that you had dance in your background was a plus, because it involves a certain amount of physical activity and grace.
I think so, too. I mean, not many other Blue Men actually have come from all different backgrounds, both acting, and some are just musicians, and they sort of just cross the divide between the two of them.
Now, let me ask, you were, as you said, a dancer up in Toronto, and it's funny because I just got through a whole set of playing Canadian songs in honor of the late Pierre Junot, who was the guy who made sure that Canadian songs were played on Canadian radio, and so on. It's just kind of interesting that you mentioned your stint up in Canada. But
yeah,
was that your initial impulse when you first were in your teens? It's like, I'm going to be a dancer. That was the route?
I'm having a hard time hearing you, but I think you're asking me not exactly how I got involved, but was that where I started?
Well, yeah, and in fact, was it to be an actor, or were you essentially going to be a dancer from when you were a kid?
I graduated from the University of California, Irvine, from their theater program. And at the time, after graduation, a lot of my friends were moving up to Los Angeles to do the LA thing, as it's referred to. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I had taken some movement classes, and I thought, if I don't do this now, I think I may regret it later. And since my life is primarily ruled by regret, I don't know if that's really an Irish.
Well, you know what? I'm going
to now. Okay.
Wait, John. I'm going to stop you right there, because you don't put a line like that out there without me kind of stopping and going off on another route. So, what are your major regrets?
What are my list of regrets?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you make that joke. I'm a Jew. I make jokes like that all the time. But what's the okay? There's some truth in a joke like that. So, what are your major regrets?
Okay, this one's for all the kids out there. I often felt like that maybe I should have just barreled through the theater program at the university with just soaking in everything that they had to offer, just in every corner of that department, instead of taking on all of the general education that gets involved and wrapped into, and oh my God, I've got to get the degree, which was fine, was helpful later on. So but these are that's past regrets.
Oh, well, that's
thinking that maybe having stayed on this other path, that would have maybe something more fruitful. I don't know. I don't know exactly the answer to that.
Well, that's fair. I mean, I'm here, obviously, at the University of Northern Colorado, and surrounded by the Performing Visual Arts Department, and taking a class in another department. And if you soak yourself into it, and you really pick and choose and try. There's tons of things that can enrich your life and that you can learn. And I remember, though, going back to school years ago when I was first getting my BFA in New York. For me, it was all, well, when I'm going to get the degree and let me get as many credits as I can, let me just get out of here so I can hit the big world. And again, there's also this sign of, well, no, man, I should have made more friends. I should have had more experiences, and I should have done more volunteer and internship things. And
yes, of course. All the sort of like community things you should have. Yeah, yes. Oh God, always that. So I look at my nieces and nephews they're really involved in their communities and doing things in charity and helping out, and I'm like, who wasn't pushing me in that direction? Who wasn't giving me little nods? And maybe it was just the time. Maybe it was the I don't want to say the 80s with that way of saying that, it was the 80s, but maybe there was something to that maybe it was just like, I don't know, maybe we don't need to help out that much. Maybe everyone's just fine.
The Reagan era, of course. So
sure.
Are you backtracking on that? Do you volunteer your time for things? Are you a charity?
That's when I started getting involved with the therapy.
Oh, of course.
Because I thought that would be a nice way. I'm like, here I am living in Chicago, and I have this great steady job with this very successful show, Blue Man Group. And I have my days free. It's a long-running show. You perform in the evenings. What am I going to do with my days? Well, maybe there's something else I can do. And having done all this work with Abby, I'm like, this is perfect combination. We can start giving back and helping out in the community.
Now, can I ask, why are you no longer doing Blue Man?
It was time. 8 years. That's a long time.
So who decides that? You, them, mutual, or what?
I think it's mutual with any sort of, it's like any job, really, And then after a certain point, it's fantastic to be doing. I mean, that's such a successful show, and it brought so many other opportunities. And but after a while, you kind of, not you, me,
yeah.
me. You just have to find your own voice. What are the stories I want to tell? What's the music I want to play?
Right, but the thing is, you're still an actor and a performer, and
Correct.
So Blue Man, for whatever else it was, besides being a work of genius, was also for you a steady paycheck for 8 years. How did you leap into, and it's not as if you're leaving one job in the business sector and then going to another, you hope. When you left Blue Man, you had to make this decision to say, okay, I'm not going to get my equity check this week.
Oh, yeah, I would say that any artist that's performing in a long-running show, or any individual that has a job, whether they're a long-standing job in downtown, working Wall Street, possibly, it's like, well, when do I leave this? Have I saved up enough of a nest egg to now step away and do my own thing? Or I have friends that are still performing with the show that now they have family and they have kids, and so for them it's even more of a career now.
Of course, yeah. But for you, making the leap into, because it's not as if you leapt from Blue Man into a Broadway show or something like that. You leapt from that into doing the therapy dog stuff, which is that just volunteer, or do you make something about
that was just volunteer.
Just volunteer. So now you're doing this one-person show, and speaking as someone who's in the middle of working on a one-person show himself,
right.
there ain't no money in that, dude. I mean, you, as you said, even
there's very little money involved. There is, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough to keep you going. We talked about this off the air a couple of weeks ago, but you hopefully break even and do a little better, and you maybe, you get enough to travel for free and feed yourself, but then it's over and you're not putting anything away for sure.
And then the season will die down and end, and then during that time, hopefully you'll have something that you can go back to or get some part-time work during that time while you're maybe working up the next show or ready to put the show back out there again for maybe the next season of Fringes that you apply to, and hopefully the lottery gods are on your side and you get into them.
I just love the confidence of actors. It's sort of like you're when the season ends and I've done the show, then something will happen. Like I'll get something. I wish I had that kind of optimism there. You don't seem worried about it. Maybe because you put enough away.
Yeah, is it optimism or just sheer naivete? I'll let you know.
Well, do you audition for...
At the very end of the game?
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
That's fair. But
how it all turned out.
Do you audition for pilot season in L.A.? Are you auditioning for shows in New York?
There's a thing that happens called pilot season.
Yeah.
I would not consider myself one of the actors that is involved in that. I understand that there are people that go out and are seen and are called in for pilots. That hasn't really happened for me in the 2 years that I've been out there now. I'll go in and read for smaller parts once either the pilot has been established, they're going to shoot it. Once they figured out their principal characters. So I read for minor roles.
Oh, well, that's fine. But again, that's picking up work. Do you audition for shows in New York?
Primarily, it's been shows that have been based in Los Angeles.
Oh, because so you're just coming out to New York for like 2 weeks to do your show, but you are still basically based in L.A.
I have a bag of clothing in Los Angeles. That's where I am. That is currently where I'm hanging my hat. I still have my place here in New York City to run back to.
Oh, so you have a home. Your home is in New York. Sort of.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. So you are New York based, so that it wasn't a ridiculous question as to whether you open Backstage or Backstage.com and, you go through it and look for stuff, or are you so involved in your show that's kind of taken a back burner?
Such a good question. I think psychologically, it's good to let go of all that search and occasionally just tap in, meaning an occasional workshop. Get to meet a couple casting directors, then let that go. Really let it go, because I would say, oh God, now this sounds like advice to
Sure. No, please.
To all the young actors out there, follow John's lead. Quit school.
No.
Leave your good-paying job and write a show and pray to someone that someone comes to it. I think there's so many different avenues there's no one way to make it work. And again, I'm not speaking from the best experience where things have worked out. I mean, there's plenty of things that I read for that I do not get.
Oh, sure. Okay.
But I think it's just you're establishing relationships with producers and directors and casting people out in Los Angeles. So if you're going to do that, have kind of a large game plan in mind. Not within a year or 2 years. Have a 5-7 year spread or something just kind of relax about it.
Well, I mean, I would say that's
the most amazing fallback plan ever, which I don't know that I'll let you know that is when I figure that out.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's funny because last week I was talking to Alice Ripley on the show, the actress from Next to Normal, and her thing was, you have to be an actor for 20 years before you really know what you're doing. Before you really you can really get into a role and understand it and understand yourself well enough to go and play roles. It takes about 20 years. And it's great to hear, of course, from a veteran actress like her. But for someone who's coming out of, say, PBA here, who's a junior or senior, you can't. That's not particularly helpful either. I mean, well, no, that's fine if I'm only going to be a good actor 20 years from now, but I got to act now.
Oh yeah. There's always that sense of it, that urgency, and I would say everyone. I won't speak for everyone, but yeah, I mean, I feel that too, and there's moments of that, and then there's moments of just trying to stay present and just try to know that, just keep doing work, like really keep doing your own work and exploring your own work and keep picking at it, and then I think people will come to you and see you, and at least I think that's a happier, even if they don't, I think that's a happier place to be than to be this one that's tearing their hair out, trying to gotta beat the thing right now, because that's not really riding. I'm not a surfer, but I know for a fact that is not riding the wave. That is, you're pitched too far in front of it, or you're just way behind. You're just behind it. And you're trying to catch up to it.
Cool. Good advice from John Grady. We have just a couple of minutes more with John, and I did want to ask, because I don't remember seeing you, maybe because I didn't know who you were at that point, or maybe you weren't in the cast then, but you were in an off-Broadway show that was dedicated to the late Spalding Gray. They took some of his monologues, bits of his monologues, and a few different actors did them. And you were in that. You were part of Stories Left to Tell off-Broadway. And was Spalding Gray a huge influence for you in concocting this one-person show, or did it just happen that you were in a Spalding Gray show and he's a famous monologist and blah, blah, blah?
Well, I would, yes. I met Spalding a couple times. Once when I was up in Canada, and when I was training at the National Ballet School, actually. I went and saw a performance of his, Monster in a Box, when he was doing it up there, and had a chance to speak with him afterwards, and we talked about storytelling and writing and that sort of process. I was still interested in that, even though I was heading down that path of, training as a ballet dancer, and I was still intrigued with the, telling your own personal narrative and exploring that, taking at each one of those, like the stories for me, they start with someone. Generally, someone's like, "Oh, John, tell that story. The thing when you did with the thing when then that thing happened," and you're like,
right.
"Huh? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll tell the story." And I'm like, "Why do people always ask about that story?" And then I have to sort of pick at it and try to find what the nugget is. So, and I felt like he was able to do that so freely, so carefree. He's like Mike Daisy is another person that comes to mind. I watch them; they're just effortless, in their exploration of their events in their life.
But you don't. Do you monologue in Fear Factor? Are you reading from the script as Spalding Gray used to do, or are you improvising a little bit? How much is absolutely word for word, and how much is the story you're just telling?
It's a very carefully written show, so that's word for word.
It is, okay.
But the process is longer. The show, there's a show, and that's almost something different than the process beforehand. And
explain.
I think Spalding was a person who was able to bring those tightly together, so that he would just walk up each night and let's try it this way. Here's a few notes. Let me just go. Right. And I think that's a great thing to strive for. That's something that I would love to strive for. Right now, this piece just came up and sort of found its own shape as I began writing it, and so now it's where it's at right now. Right,
but yours is it is a script. It is a word for word, as opposed to the story and you're just kind of telling it, but it changes a little each night.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
It is. And then I do, and I reminder for myself each night before walking on stage is just tell the stories. Forget about the words. I mean, the words, but just remember you're just telling each of these stories, and I just have to share the story. And it takes a lot of the pressure off, and then the words just come. So there could be some improvisation if need be.
Yeah, but
there's no fear of getting stuck in the words and what was that line that I wrote? What was that turn of phrase? It just comes.
That's great. And I hope our listeners, well, the ones in New York certainly, or in the tri-state area, will come to see Fear Factor, the Canine Edition, starring and written by John Grady. For more information, please go to his website, thejohngrady.com, and he's at the Frigid New York Festival. And what is the theater? What theater is it in?
It's the Crane Theater on 4th Street in the East Village.
Crane Theater on East 4th, and he's done it a couple of times. You've got a performance tomorrow at 1, and then Thursday, March 1st at 9 o'clock in the evening, and Saturday, March 3rd is your last show. It's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So people do check that out. Sorry? Yeah, sorry?
That's it.
Yep.
And then after that, I'll head off to a few other fringe festivals through the spring and summer.
Will we see you in Colorado?
Colorado's going to have to be. I'll have to apply next season for sure.
Oh, okay. Cool. So what other fringes are you going to be at in the next couple of months?
I'll be in Fresno for their Rogue Festival just after Frigid here for one weekend. Then I go to London, Ontario, and Ottawa, and later on during the summer, Nanaimo and Vancouver.
Wow. Nice. And you know what? I know we only have like another minute or two, but I have to ask this again, especially on the air, about the process of it. I mean, is it the fact that you send the script and like it, you're invited, or are you paying your own way and then you keep ticket sales, or is each Fringe Festival different? What is that whole thing?
They're almost, I think, in my experience, the fringes that I've applied for are all lottery. They are unjuried, so whoever gets chosen, it is the luck of the draw. Some people apply before they even have a show. They're just like, get me in there. I'll worry about what the show is later on.
Right. And then
you will pay for your flight or your transportation to there, and then you will work your buns off to get people into their seats so you can make your money back.
So that's the major thing. Like when you're physically in town, you can't just kind of go see other people's shows or sit around in the hotel room. You've got to be out there with postcards and just go, please come, please come, please come. Is that?
Oh, yeah, and you're getting to know all the other performers, and you're seeing their shows and supporting their shows, and they in turn are supporting you. It's a very tight community. It's a fantastic group of artists from all over the world that you'll run into along any of these fringe festivals.
And they're all sharing the same can of baked beans. It sounds like.
Yes.
Because, I feel like I'm going to be on that circuit for the next year or two, and I'm just kind of dipping my toe into it. So I'm just a little bit nervous.
Yeah, do it.
I know.
No regrets.
I know. I've got my show. I submitted it to the Boulder Fringe, and I'm in 27th on the waiting list. Who knew they'd get so many submissions that there's a waiting list of more than 20 shows to come in there?
Oh, yeah, you should see the waiting list for Toronto. I don't know what it is about that town, but, man, it is pages long.
Good Lord. And what about Edinburgh? I can't imagine.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be out of control.
Well, I hope we both make it to all the places that we want to make it to. Me with my show.
That was fantastic. I look forward to seeing you then and seeing your show.
Well, hey, that's right. If you're in New York, I don't know if I invited you officially yet, but please come see it. Did I give you the information?
Oh, you did. It's running over the 10th of March, and I will be at the Rogue Festival in Fresno at that time.
Oh,
yeah,
well, so you'll just have to see it. My show when it's on Broadway at the Winter Garden. That's all.
Fantastic.
John Grady, it's been delightful talking to you. Everybody, go see Fear Factor, the Canine Edition, at the Crane Theater over this next week and up until March 3rd, next Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. More information, go to thejohngrady.com or just look up info about the whole Frigid New York Festival. John, it's been much, much fun. Thank you so much for being in the neighborhood. Have a great one. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.